Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. I'm Cassidy. If you're new here, welcome. It's really nice to meet you. If you are returning, welcome back. I'm really appreciative of the fact that you came back to see me. So today we'll be talking about the Séance. It is by Joan Lowery Nixon. Very small book, way smaller than what I'm used to reading, but it was still a good read. It just meant I went through it quicker. Anyone is interested, this is the bookmark I was using. It's a little ghosty reading a book, which I felt was very appropriate for a book called The Séance. It is by the business Gloomy Grove. The name of the business is displayed at the very bottom of the bookmark. I love it when businesses do that because I won't remember after I buy it which business it's from. So I always appreciate something on the product to let me know who created it. And as always, if you see me look down or off to the side, I'm just referring back to my notebook where I put all my notes while reading the book in. I don't want to forget telling you guys anything. Also, as always, massive spoilers for the entire video. I will be doing a complete summary of the book and my thoughts throughout while reading it. So if you would like to read the book yourself without any spoilers, please click off the video, click back on after you've read it, and let me know what you thought. Alright, so let's get started. The Séance by Joan Lowery Nixon. The very top of the book on the back, it says, "A séance leads to unaliving." It says the word starts with an M, but you know. Alright. Lauren had wanted nothing to do with this séance. In the dark, she senses the presence of evil, and when the lights come on, her fear turns to shock. Her friend Sarah is missing, even though all the doors and windows are locked, from the inside. Sarah's body is found in the swamp the next morning, but that's not the end of the nightmare. When the second girl from the séance is unalived, Lauren realizes she must figure out what's happening, or she may end up the next victim. So my first impressions after reading the back is that for a very small book, it was a pretty small description in the back, but that's pretty fitting. And I'm curious how many people were part of the séance, and is it a ghost or is it a person? Like, why was this girl unalived? Alright, so we start and it's the middle of the night. Lauren is up, she's looking out the window. She sees Sarah sneaking back into the house from seeing a boy. At first, I thought that Lauren liked Sarah romantically, because she turns away when Sarah leans in to kiss the boy, and she doesn't want to see Sarah kissing a boy. You find out later that she doesn't like Sarah at all, kind of hates her, and really it's just that Lauren is jealous of Sarah, and she's jealous of her good looks and of the fact that all the boys seem to really like her, and she doesn't get that kind of attention from boys. Lauren lives with her great aunt Mel ever since her mom passed. And Sarah moved in with them not that long ago because basically no one else would take her. She's a ward of the state. And the pastor of their small town was, "Go ask Mel. She's like a woman of God. She'll take you in." And Mel did. This is very small town, East Texas, so everyone's super duper religious and everyone knows everything about each other. So it's the next morning. Sarah and Lauren are walking to school together. Sarah tells Lauren that the new girl, Roberta, she can talk to the dead, and she holds seances. Lauren thinks that's ridiculous. She doesn't believe it at all. And she says that Sarah is stupid for believing it as well. During lunch at school, her two best friends, Allie and Maddie, they come up to Lauren and they tell her the same thing. "Hey, did you hear the new girl, Roberta, can talk to the dead?" She's like, "Who told you that, Sarah?" And they're like, "How did you know?" But they want to join Roberta for the next séance that she holds. Lauren is just fed up with Sarah and fed up with all her shenanigans, and she wants Lauren wants Sarah out of her life. When they're walking home, Sarah's a little bit ahead of Lauren, and Lauren sees her get into the sheriff's car, and then they drive away. At dinner that night in front of Aunt Mel, Lauren kind of confronts Sarah a little bit. Not fully, but "Oh, I saw you talking to the sheriff." And Aunt Mel is like, "What was that about?" Sarah, not fazed, just says, "Oh, there's a mix-up with my birth date. He just wanted to correct it." When they're alone after Aunt Mel leaves to hang out with her friends, that is when Lauren actually confronts Sarah. Is like, "I saw you get in his car. Why are you lying?" And she's like, are you going to snitch on me? And she's like, no, I was never going to snitch on you. I haven't snitched on you for anything else you've done. And she's like, what do you mean? And she's like, I know you've been sneaking out at night, basically. They argue about that. Sarah says some pretty hurtful things like, oh, you're just jealous that all the boys want me and none of them like you. Lauren, understandably, is pretty upset by this, tells Sarah that she doesn't want her in her life, like she wants her gone forever. Sarah gets like this weird little grin on her face and is like, why don't you just wish for it? She says, why don't you wish it like all the way, wish me to be dead? And Lauren's like, I would never wish that on anybody. And she gets like really uncomfortable because this entire time, Sarah just has like this like weird grin on her face. She's like, ah. That's how I imagine it anyway. So the next day at lunch, all the girls get together. All the girls who want to be a part of the seance. Roberta's also there. So it's like Sarah, Lauren, Maddie, Allie, I think like 2 or 3 other girls. The other girls aren't super important to the story, but they all meet to talk about the seance and when they're going to do it. Lauren asks some questions, but everyone has a very prepared answer. She's like, you guys have already talked about this, haven't you? And they're like, we knew you would need some convincing. So she's really upset that they like met without her, but honestly, she's being really obtuse about it. The girls just kind of want to have some fun and like giggle about ghosts. And she's just like, this is stupid, like, you guys are being ridiculous, and anyway, she does agree to go. She wants to prove to Sarah that she can do it, or something like that. She wants to prove herself to Sarah. So they decide for that Friday night to do the seance. They all arrive at Roberta's. She's taking this extremely seriously. She has, like, really dark black eyeshadow, like, all around her eyes. She's wearing black clothing. Like, she takes her role very seriously. All the girls are pretty giggly about it. They're just, like, laughing about this whole scenario. They quiet down, and Roberta basically screams at them to be quiet. And then she's, like, more calm. It's like, please quiet down. So they quiet down. Once it starts, Roberta lights a candle. The lamp gets turned off, so the only light in the room is from the candle. She states some facts about the girls, like one of you lost some money, one of you's having like boyfriend troubles, one of you's getting a call that you desperately want, like very vague stuff if I'm being honest. This entire time Lauren is growing very uneasy, like she feels the uneasy presence in the room. She's getting kind of scared, actually. Then, as she's thinking like that, she's pretty scared and she's just going to call this whole thing off. Sarah starts screaming that something is wrong, something's evil in the room, like screaming. She like falls forward and the candle goes out. So they're in pitch black darkness. It takes a minute for the lights to come back on because the lamp had gotten unplugged. And when the lights finally do come back on, Sarah is gone. They go to check all the doors and windows and everything is locked up from the inside. So, how did Sarah get out? They decide to call the sheriff pretty quickly after Sarah's gone. They like search the house as well. They can't find her, so they call the sheriff. Allie ends up fainting. She comes to before the sheriff comes. So, sheriff comes. He doesn't believe that anything is amiss, he doesn't believe that anything is wrong. He's like, Sarah just ran off with a boy, and one of you girls locked up behind her. That's it. And then he leaves. He takes all the girls home, though. And Aunt Mel is very upset that Lauren was a part of the seance and didn't tell her about Sarah sneaking out or anything like that. But she does believe Lauren when she states that she doesn't know anything. The next day, everybody knows. Again, small town in East Texas. Literally every single person in this town knows what went on. Some are like, oh, these girls are the devil. They did a seance. Some are like, yeah, Sarah just ran away with a boy. Like, come on. Lauren is trying to think of all the boys that she's seen Sarah around with, and Sarah liked the boys, and from how it's described. all the boys at school would be like at her beck and call, basically. She'd always be flirting and giggling with them, but not just schoolboys. There were the adults as well. The sheriff she got into the car with, the sheriff's deputy, Jep, which it's J-E-P. Lauren had saw Sarah in like the bed of his truck one day after school. Their neighbor, they have a married couple as neighbors, Fant and Feeney. Fant being the man, Feeney being the woman. And every time Fant was outside, Sarah would go over and say hi, and they'd talk for a really long time. So Lauren's trying to think of all the boys that she's seen Sarah with, and if she's seen all of those boys today. She's at the store, and Jep comes in, the sheriff's deputy, and he comes in, he's talking to Lauren about college and how Lauren should go. Lauren's like, I'm not going to go to college. It's not important. Like, I don't have any money saved. I'm not going to do anything. My grades aren't good enough for a scholarship. Jep is like, hey, don't count yourself short. Like, you should go. It'd be really good for you. It's also, Lauren likes Jep. Like, she thinks he's really cute, and he's the sheriff's deputy. In the middle of them talking, the sheriff comes running in and says that a hunter had found Sarah's body. So Lauren walks home after hearing the sheriff say that the hunter found Sarah's body. She's basically in shock. Anytime someone comes up to her and tries to talk to her, she tells them what happened, that a hunter found Sarah's body. And so news spreads like wildfire, like faster than anything else probably. She tells Aunt Mel the same thing. Aunt Mel goes to see the body, maybe to identify it. I'm not entirely sure. But she goes because she is Sarah's guardian. It's found out that Sarah drowned in the thicket being the swamp. The sheriff and Jep then come over, visit the house. The sheriff states that he thinks that Sarah was purposely unalived. It wasn't an accident. He has really no proof, but it's a feeling he has, and his feelings are never wrong. Lauren thinks about telling the two that Sarah was running off to meet a boy and run away with the boy, that she was planning this, like for sure planning this, and she doesn't because one of those boys could have been either the sheriff or the sheriff's deputy. She doesn't trust anyone, at least none of the boys. They go to church the next day. The sermon is all about saying no to seances and saying no to evil. So it's very obviously about these girls. Basically every girl is there aside from Maddie, who we find out faked cramps to get out of it, and Roberta, who goes to a different church. But every other girl's there is real uncomfy. Most of the people are like not on their side and like shun them a little bit, or at least kind of rude. Some are on their side, one of them being Carly's grandma. Carly is the boy who Sarah really liked at school. Or at the very least, Carly really liked Sarah. Anyway, his grandma basically just states, kids will be kids, they were just having fun, it was innocent, like, we've all done stupid things back when we were kids. Sarah's mom actually comes for like the funeral and everything, and they stay with Aunt Mel and Lauren. It's revealed that Sarah's mom gave her up after she was like preteen teenager because Sarah was a difficult child and her mom couldn't handle her. I think it's a bogus excuse. You're a mom. But her dad had passed away like a few years prior, and she just couldn't handle her daughter. So she gave her up. She became a ward of the state, ended up with Aunt Mel. Sarah's mom's also pretty rude to Lauren, calls Lauren plain and obviously jealous of Sarah. Like, it's true, but still rude. And asks who Sarah was planning to meet. Lauren states that she doesn't know. Sarah never told her. The mom doesn't believe her. And while the mom was rude to Lauren, Lauren's also real rude to Sarah's mom. Like, whether or not she wasn't a good mom, let's be real here. She gave up her child. But she still lost a child, and I feel like a little bit of sympathy is in order. Lauren has no sympathy. None whatsoever. She's pretty rude to her, actually. Not even just indifference, but, like, kind of rude. So after Sarah's mom goes inside after Lauren states she doesn't know who Sarah was planning to meet. Fant, the neighbor, comes over and he asks Lauren the same thing. Who was Sarah going to meet? She's like, I don't know. Lauren at this point doesn't trust any of the boys, especially the ones that she's seen Sarah with. So she's worried that Fant is like, if you know it's me, I'm going to unalive you too. And so she's like, if I knew who she was going to meet, everybody in this town would know. Fant also states that, oh, you remember Sarah used to always come over and talk to Feeny, my wife. You remember that. But Sarah never came over to talk to the wife. She always came over to talk to Fant. So he probably just said that to like divert suspicion off of him. Lauren thinks that they were a thing, which is gross because he's 35 and Sarah is a minor. Like, don't touch the freaking child. It's nasty. Lauren goes to school the next day. All the girls, minus Roberta, meet up trying to figure out who could have been the girl to, like, lock up behind Sarah. No one cops to it. They don't get to talk for very long. Most of the girls leave. Allie, who is Lauren's best friend, turns to her and is like, I think one of the girls here is, like, in league with the unaliver, like, with the person who did this to Sarah. One of us is working with them. Like, she is, like, extra suspicious, and Ellie is the most freaked out girl about all of this. Like, she is on the verge of a panic attack basically 24/7 is how I imagine her and how she's, like, described. Then it's the funeral. Lauren, again, being very rude to Sarah's mom before the funeral. Like, come on, girl. And Sarah's mom was obviously crying. She's like, maybe if your husband didn't die. Like, girl, stop it. No sympathy. Still no sympathy for her. It's ridiculous. Like, again, Sarah's mom, not a good parent. Probably not even a good person. But still, I feel like basic common courtesy is that you don't bash the woman who just lost her child. Or any... I don't know. It was weird. Lauren wants to figure out who Sarah was going to meet. Says that it's the least she can do for her. And decides to talk to someone. She doesn't know who, doesn't trust anyone, so she decides to talk to Carly's grandma. Because she was the only one who was, like, kind of on her side after the church sermon. She goes over, but the grandma's really only interested in the actual seance and what happened, what went down, so Lauren decides to leave. Carly also sees her there, is, like, happy to see her, but she leaves very, very quickly. The sheriff wants to recreate the seance so he can get all the information that he possibly can. Lauren is terrified. She doesn't want to go. She thinks it's ridiculous. She doesn't want to, but the sheriff demands it. Again, small town, East Texas, so what he says goes. So Aunt Mel decides to walk with her over to Roberta's house. They get there, and Roberta's not there. Her mom had sent her to the store for something, but it had been like an hour, and she's not back. So they decide to recreate the seance as much as they can without Roberta, but all the girls are really scared. They don't want to do it, and they kind of refuse to continue. The sheriff lets them off the hook. He says, I have all the information I need. And so everyone disperses. The next day, someone finds Roberta's body in the thicket. Lauren ends up taking a walk because the neighbor Feeny comes over, and she's being real rude to Lauren, like, very pointed looks, pointed comments, and Lauren is super uncomfy, so Aunt Mel tells her, go walk to Allie's house. Lauren doesn't want to talk to Allie, so she just ends up taking a walk, and the sheriff pulls up right next to her. He's like, hey, get in. She's really scared, but she gets in because it's the sheriff, and then she gets real scared when he drives them to the thicket. Once they're out, she decides to run off the path because she doesn't want to die. The sheriff yells at her to stop, and there's an urgency in his voice that makes Lauren actually stop. He pulls the gun and points and shoots at the rattlesnake that was right next to Lauren. He's like, you were scared of me? She's like, I thought you were gonna, like, unalive me. I saw Sarah get in your car. And he's like, there was a mix-up with her birth date records, and she asked me to drive her to the convenience store. The sheriff really just brought her out to the thicket to show Lauren where Sarah ended up dying, and Roberta so that she would feel guilty and give him names of boys that she liked and was seen with. Lauren refuses to do so because any name that she gives the sheriff will automatically be under suspicion, and she doesn't want to do that to a bunch of people. She also reveals to the sheriff that she was actually the one who unplugged the lamp so that it would take longer for the lights to come back on, and that she was the one who locked the doors behind Sarah, that Sarah just wanted to leave, and she never felt at home here, and it would be kind of like her graduation party, her leaving in style. Lauren also ends up giving the sheriff a name, but the name is Jep, his deputy. He's like, my deputy? She's like, see, any name I give you is ridiculous. So that's the only name that she ends up giving the sheriff. Jep, the deputy, comes over to Lauren and Mel's house, and he's like, the sheriff told me you gave him my name, and Lauren at first is so apologetic. She's like, I'm sorry, he was asking, and he explains, like, we only hung out a couple times. She's fun. Like, I drink some beers. She only drinks soda because she's under 21. And it nasty. Like, Lauren got the ick, thank God. But he's a 28-year-old man. And Sarah was literally, like, 17, maybe 16. Disgusting. Like, there is no reason a grown-ass man, 28 years old, should be drinking a bunch of beers alone with a 17-year-old girl. Like, I don't know who would willingly, like, just hang out like that with a minor who is not related to them in any way. Just for fun. Because she's fun. He knew what he was doing. And I don't know why all these adult men have to touch the child. It's nasty, and they should all go to jail. But small town East Texas, they're not going to. But they should be in prison. Anyway, like I said, thankfully Lauren got the ick. It's the next day at school, and Lauren wants to talk to Allie about everything, like bounce ideas off of her. Allie's her best friend. Allie refuses. She's like, I'm not talking about it. Like, on one hand, Allie is protecting her mental health, and I get that. And I do feel like that's fair, but she's very much like, I don't care that you want to talk about this. I am not talking about it. You can figure it out yourself. Like, not being there for her friend. And so Lauren is mad. Carly ends up coming up to her. He's like, hey, my grandma really liked that you visited. She would really appreciate if you visited again. And so Lauren's like, fine. Allie, I'm not going to hang out with you today, actually. And I'm going to go visit Carly's grandma. So she goes to visit her. Lauren ends up telling Carly's grandma everything about the seance, how she was the one who locked the doors behind Sarah, how Sarah was going to meet a boy. She doesn't know who it was. Everyone assumes she does. Roberta ended up dying because of Lauren. Like, Lauren feels real guilty. Carly ends up overhearing all of this, and then Lauren ends up, like, running out of the house and leaving really scared because Carly's grandma, like, gets all up in her face and is like, evil was opened that night by you girls, and it's, like, real creepy. So she leaves. Carly ends up coming over that night to explain to Lauren, like, I was the boy that Sarah was supposed to meet. We were going to run away together. I ended up being late. Like, Sarah wasn't there. I never saw her. I ended up being late because my grandma had to work the late shift and I didn't get the car in time. Like, I never found Sarah. He doesn't want to tell the sheriff because the sheriff will automatically assume that he's guilty and throw him in jail when Carly didn't kill her. Lauren agrees with Carly that he shouldn't tell the sheriff. They should just try to figure out who actually unalived Sarah. Fant comes over in the middle of all this, the neighbor Fant, and he comes over very panicked about his wife, Feeney. She's having, like, a medical emergency, but the doctor's out of town, and so he came to get Aunt Mel because she can help with those kind of scenarios, at least enough until the doctor gets there. Carly and Lauren then move to the front porch because it is improper for a boy and a girl to be alone in a house together. And so they're on the front porch. They just kind of talk about life and school, how Carly is going to go to college. He encourages Lauren to go to college as well. She kind of tells him the same thing she told Jeff, that she was never really thinking about. She doesn't have the money, blah, blah, blah. Carly ends up leaving. He, like, quickly checks the house to make sure, like, she's good. But Lauren just kind of ushers him out really quickly, like he doesn't get a chance to check anything. She goes in and she realizes that there's someone in the house with her. They came in through the back door because the back door was unlocked, and she is terrified. So she ends up sneaking outside, out back, and she knows that the bad guy followed her, and she's trying to think about who it could be. Could it be Fant? Did he sneak away while Aunt Mel was fussing over Feeney? Could it be the sheriff's deputy, Jep? Like, could it, like, she doesn't believe it could be Carly, but could it be Carly? Like, who is it? She tries to get through the gate, but she gets caught, unfortunately, and when getting caught, she sees Carly's car, and she's like, no, Carly, I trusted you. And she's struggling. She doesn't want to go down without a fight. And she hears a voice behind her say, stop struggling, I have a gun. That voice belongs to Carly's grandma. She is the one who is attacking Lauren. Like, she has an ironclad grip on this girl. And, like, drags her to the car, basically. She reveals that she unalived Sarah because Carly and Sarah were going to run away together, and she was going to ruin Carly's life. He was going to make something of himself, move to the big city, get out of the small town, and she couldn't let Sarah ruin that. And then she unalived Roberta because Roberta was the one who performed the seance, and so was going to put a spell on Carly, and it was weird. Like, girl, obviously a little cray-cray. But now she's going to unalive Lauren because Lauren obviously knew that Sarah and Carly were going to run away together, and Lauren's like, I didn't know, and it's too late now. Like, she knows who unalived everybody, but Carly's grandma makes her get in the car and makes her in the driver's seat and, like, forces her to drive. So Lauren makes the decision to drive them into the neighbor's house, like, full on through the little gate, through their yard, into the house. Lauren wakes up in the hospital. Aunt Mel is there by her side. She's knitting. And she tells her, like, you were shot in the leg, otherwise not really worse for wear. Lauren asks about the grandma, and Carly's grandma had a few scratches on her, not really anything bad, but she got sent to psychiatric testing and care. She'll probably be deemed, like, not guilty by reason of insanity, get psychiatric care, which is probably good. Girl, lady needs it. Lauren asks about how Carly is taking everything, and Aunt Mel's basically states really hard, he's really worried about you, and it's important to note that Lauren definitely was starting to like Carly when they were having a conversation, like getting little butterflies while they were talking, and so she's kind of happy to hear that he's, like, worried about her. Obviously, very sad for him. His grandma unalived his girlfriend. Wild, but, you know. Lauren ends up stating to her Aunt Mel that she might want to go to college one day. Aunt Mel's like, really? I didn't think that interested you. And she's like, I don't know, it might. And so Aunt Mel's like, okay, no problem. I kept all the money you made from your part-time jobs that you gave to help with the house. I kept, so you still have that. And I can always sell a little piece of my land that so-and-so has been wanting to buy. So you'll have enough money. And Lauren just kind of, she doesn't want to see Carly quite yet, but she, like, falls asleep in the hospital bed feeling loved. Which is her and Aunt Mel had a very, not like tumultuous, not like a bad relationship or anything, but it wasn't super affectionate. So her going to bed feeling really loved is important, and it's very sweet. And that, my friends, is the story of the Séance. Overall, I liked the book. Again, it was a pretty easy read, pretty quick read. My biggest critique is that I did not like Lauren. I felt like she was a pretty unlikable character, and I get it. She's like 17 years old. She's a child. She's scared. There was someone in her crazy town that she definitely knew because it was such a small town that was running around unaliving teenage girls. So I get it. But even before all that, I don't know, I just felt her very unlikable. She never liked Sarah just because Sarah was prettier than her and, like, wasn't her friend. Sarah didn't really have any friends. And she really could have used some good friends. And then she was just so obtuse about the whole seance thing and her friends wanting to have some fun. No one really believed in the seance, but they wanted to have some fun, and she was a cloud over their little parade, and I don't know. Overall, I think she redeemed herself by the end, but also, I don't know, didn't really like her that much. Overall, though, it was still a pretty good book. Let me know in the comments down below. What did you think of it? If you read it, did you get the same vibes of just not really liking Lauren, or did you really like her? Like, she's a teenage girl. Teenage girls make dumb decisions. Like, tell me what you thought down below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. I'll see you all next time. Bye!